Wish TV, Indiana's only statewide TV news network. News 8 continues now.
There's never women that held cameras when I was playing tennis, so we didn't have a woman sports writer even
not even a woman sports writer
at the King Riggs match.
Wow, is that right?
Yeah, not one. So.
Well, that was Billie Jean King talking to then Daybreak's Dick Wolfsey back in 2007. She was in town to wave the green flag to start off the 500th pole day. King had come off from winning the Battle of the Sexes tennis match against Bobby Riggs on the heels of a new law promising sex-based equality in school and in sports. Now, Title IX, written by Indiana's very own Senator Birch Bayh, it was signed into law in 1972. And that same year marked the debut of a young, up-and-coming reporter hungry for a job covering her hometown. That's right, 1972, Jane Pauley. She started out here at Wish TV. Here now is News 8's Felicia Michelle.
The surest way to cut the high cost of eating is to eat less. And in 1975, 26% of us say we are actually trying to eat less to save money.
In our 70-year history, she's probably the biggest name to come out of Wish TV.
Jane Pauley returned to her old stomping grounds today. The Warren Central and IU graduate has had a stellar career, which she says she takes no responsibility for.
I applied for one job in my life, and that's just unreal.
When I hear Lee tell the story of how he hired her.
Jane, you have no background in news at all. You know nothing about television. In our case, it doesn't make any difference anyway because we don't have any openings. And then we did have an opening. I'll have you come in and write a little newscast, you know. That'll be make it or break it. Steve Rickel, our director, he's looking back at me and I'm looking at him and he said, man, I think you got something here, Lee.
Jane was hired by former news director Lee Giles as a temporary, she says. And for a short while, she worked with former anchor Mike Ahern.
Jane?
Mike?
Welcome home to Wish TV and to Indianapolis.
Well, you don't know how good it is.
In 2004, Jane Pauley reunited with Mike Ahern for our 50th anniversary. They reflected on how perceptions had changed in that half century. Women had been on the air, such as Kay Fields, the weather girl, but there weren't that many, especially on the anchor desk.
How conscious were you that the fact that you were really breaking new ground?
In television, there's a phrase called the second wave, or the class of 72. Defining the women who arrived in television about the time I did, because the FCC strongly encouraged holding license renewals hostage, strongly encouraged more diversity, including women.
We Americans are very attached to our stomachs, but never take an empty one to the supermarket. And leave the kids at home, shop with a list, pay cash, and don't take any more than you intend to spend.
But there was some bias then against women on the air. That was nationwide.
I think it was you had different ownership, which was owned by different people then, and the headquarters in New York said they did not think Indianapolis was ready for a woman. But I really wasn't terribly aware of that. I didn't think I was so good that, look at me breaking ground. Look at me trying to figure out something to do because there's no news on the assignment board today, and Lee Giles is going to expect me to think of something.
Jane was so beautiful, and there's always this stigma, like you got to be pretty enough to be on TV. For me, I was like, I'm never going to be as pretty as Jane Pauley. Oh, I'll never make it, that sort of thing. So you have your own fear that, at least I did, my own self-doubt about whether I could make it or not.
For longtime anchor Debbie Knox, Jane Pauley was someone to look up to.
So it was like, she was cool.
And Debbie can attest to how times have changed.
The sisterhood now is a little more real for me because back when you're starting out, you're just trying to scratch your way. It's like sisterhood. I'm just trying to get my foot in the door, Thanks a lot. It's unusual for a news director to hire a female. For Lee Giles, it was a big deal. But she showed them.
One-stop shopping can save you time. It can also cost you money. If there was one store in town with all the lowest prices, there'd be one store in town with all the business.
I always said how cool it was for me to be hired by the same news director. It gave me a little confidence, I think, that I might not have had otherwise, that maybe he saw something in me. He obviously saw something in Jane Pauley.
They have been trying to make some kind of communication line there with the gunman.
Pam Elliott was first hired onto WISH in 1992 as Christmas relief. On general assignment, she covered a slew of topics from IndyCar to crime scenes, not just what's going on in the grocery store or matters of the home.
I can go back to the days where, it was male dominated. I think it's people that went before me and showed the world that women were quite capable. They didn't need to be categorized or put a certain story list, that they could do all sorts of things and yet maintain their femininity.
All while hearing constant feedback, warranted or not.
Let's be honest about it. How many men get emails or calls about their ties or the hair color? When you put yourself out there, people have a freedom, they feel a freedom to criticize you for everything. And I got it all, trust me. Hair color or jewelry selection, perhaps how I use my hands when I speak, everything. And you have to realize if it's part of the job.
Well, the set's different, cameras are different, the building has changed. But one thing has, and that's our affection for you. It's just so great to see you again.
And at the end of that 2004 interview, a representative of Mayor Bart Peterson surprised Jane Pauley for being a credit to the city and a credit to the profession.
And with great pleasure, on behalf of the citizens of Indianapolis and Mayor Peterson, I'd like to present to you a small token of our appreciation of all that you have done as a community.
It's like Oz. The typical American family makes a $220 monthly deposit at the supermarket. So for the rest of this week, we'll be looking at ways to make that investment wisely. I'm Jane Pauley reporting at the supermarket.
Now, Jane Pauley left WISH to become Chicago's first female anchor, and shortly thereafter, at the mere age of 25, Pauley succeeded Barbara Walters on NBC's Today Show. Pauley never forgot where she came from, and in 2009, she teamed up with the Community Health Network to open the Jane Pauley Community Health Center in Warren Township, where she'd grown up. Now, to find out more of our 70th anniversary WISH stories, just scan the QR code you see right there on your screen for our series that continues throughout the year.